Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast. Our primary objective is to motivate and inspire our listeners to never quit. The reality of life is simple. We all fall. We all fail. At times, we get knocked down. The question is, do we get back up? Are we stronger? Are we better prepared to attain the maximum of our potential? Thank you for joining our No Quit tribe. As you go for your greatness today, never quit. And remember, we rise by lifting others up. Welcome to episode number 304 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is Live Your Creed. Our quote of the day comes to us from John Wayne. A man's got to have a code, a creed to live by, no matter his job. I need to say a very special thank you to those that have helped us share both our message and our mission of positivity by purchasing a copy of our new book, The Positivity Tribe. For those that are interested, you could head over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or wherever else books are sold. Today's guest covers a lot of really important things. Although I only met J.R. Spear a few weeks ago, he has had a positive impact on the way I look at growing my business. He shares a lot of really interesting things to enhance both your professional as well as your personal life. I hope you enjoy today's episode. JR, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thank you.
I appreciate it. So the first question we ask everybody is, are you ready to positively impact at least one person today?
Oh, absolutely.
The number one objective of our show is to motivate and inspire listeners to never give up. And I was curious if you could share either a no-quit story of your own or perhaps a really challenging time where you could have given up or given in, but you didn't.
Yeah. So I'll tell I got plenty of stories, but I'll tell you my story that I've been sharing mainly on a lot of different shows about my time in Iraq. So my job in the military was I was a security for the chaplain. So I was an RP. So my main goal was to provide security for the chaplain because chaplains are the only true non-combatants in the service, and which means that they can't carry a weapon even for defense. So medical personnel can carry a weapon for defense, but they're still considered non-combatants. So they actually have my job specifically for them, and we provide administrative duties and different things like that as well. But in a combat situation, that is our main goal, is providing that security for the chaplain. So it was on one specific event that really changed my life for today, and going on for the rest of my life. And it happened on February 7th, 2007. So on February 7th, 2007, woke up, and me and the chaps, we were going down to the city. We're in Barwana, Iraq, and it was a nice day. It was sunny out there, just like any normal day. And our CO, our sergeant major, and a lot of the brass wanted to kind of patrol the city a little bit, just kind of checking on the Marines and seeing where they're at. And we've been in the city for a little while now. So we left on deployment on September 13th, 2006, and landed there probably a month after because we took the ships over there. So everything up until this point, it was pretty quiet. We felt we had a little bit of control over the city. We kind of knew what was going on and stuff like that. And so, the chaps and all the brass within my unit, we went through and they were patrolling the city. And then, we met down by a walking checkpoint, which is down by the river. So everyone that was walking in and out of the city, we would search. So no one can get in without being searched and knowing what was going on and stuff like that. And, just a very normal day. I was standing there with the Marines. Chaplain was kind of around a corner, around a barricade where we had some Huskos and stuff like that, talking to a couple of the other Marines. And I was standing on one side. I was literally standing on the middle where there was an opening where you could see people walking in and out. So I was right direct traffic, talking to a lot of locals and another Marine. His name was David Emery. And just was there for probably a good half hour, a little bit longer, just really get to know people. And everyone that, I can't say everyone, but a lot of people that picture Iraq, they think everyone's a terrorist or bad people and stuff like that. But there's actually a lot of really good people, and had a lot of laughs and smiles, and just kind of meeting some of the locals and even just hanging out with the Marines and stuff like that. And after standing there for about a half hour or so, I got like it's almost like a little nudge in the gut, and it felt so strong where I was almost feeling a little nauseous. I was like, man, what the heck is going on? Almost like that nervous feeling and feeling like really nauseous. Like, hey, you need to move. Go check on the chaplain, see where he's at. I can't see him because he's around the corner. I was like, all right, I'll go around there. He's probably fine, and I'll see what's going on. But it was almost like something pulling me, like, hey, you need to move. You need to go. And I was like, okay. I felt I was feeling really sick, and just kind of had like this weird feeling. Never had that before, ever. And I get up to walk and left from where I was standing. As I was moving, my sergeant major walked right by me. And, whenever you're passing senior enlisted or senior personnel, you always give a greeting. So I was like, "Hey, sergeant major, hoorah." And he looks down, he's like, "RP." I'm like this young, I think I was like 21 at the time. And, and he looks down at me with his deep voice and stuff like that. And he has like one of those voices you just don't forget. And like when he comes around, he just kind of like fills the room with presence, just high energy, just leadership. Like he is the like perfect example of what a Marine is. And just a really top leader, really took a lot of young sailors and Marines under his wings, and really taught them. And I was one of them. And he was hard on me, but he really taught me a lot when it came there. So I remember even times like he would take me into the camp and just kind of just grab me, and we walk around for hours, and he's taking me like to the artillery, the tank people, our CB people, and everything, and teaching me about every single one of them and what they do, and why they're important for me, and why I needed to learn that stuff. And that was a really cool time, because at the time I just looked at him as like, "Oh man, you don't mess with Sergeant Major." He was one of those guys you just didn't want to piss off and make mad. But it was one of those moments. So I was like, "Hey, you know what? He's awesome." And being the RP and working with the chaplain, I had a lot of people send me care packages all the time. And one specific thing that he always requested that I requested back from home. So I had my church that supported us, where they even gave us like enough care packages, like DVD players, Gerbers, DVDs, and stuff like that to where I was able to give over 2,000 Marines and sailors like a Christmas gift around that time. And it was phenomenal. I'm talking about big, huge 5 foot wide by 5 foot, 6 foot boxes just mailed directly to me that they shipped in on a helo, just dropping it out in the middle of the desert for me. And I was like, "What the heck is this?" So it's pretty phenomenal. But one thing that the sergeant major always asked for was foot powder. So like every time I get foot powder coming in, I would go outside his tent and I put it down with a little note, and he knew it came from me. And it was just our little thing. But anyways, kind of going back, I got a little off target, but anyways, so we're at this checkpoint. I'm walking down, get that nudge in my gut. I'm walking to see where the chaplain's at, and I walk by my sergeant major, get that greeting from him. And it was literally seconds after he walked by me where David Emery was, and then I was passing him up, being close to the chaplain, and then there was a coward that was walking right up to our checkpoint, lifted his arms and blew himself up. And I was literally feet away from where the suicide blast happened, probably closer than anyone there. And unfortunately, my sergeant major that I just walked by, and he was standing exactly where I was, ended up dying from that blast. And then David Emery lost both of his legs and many other injuries. We lost our interpreter, Jimmy. We lost Jennifer Purcell, and a bunch of other people got injured. So if you really think of this like a movie, like a war movie or something like that, where it's a blast happened, it was a massive bloodbath, and helicopters coming in and smoke everywhere, and it's just chaotic. No one really knows what's going on. I was thrown. I don't know if I was knocked out for a period of time or whatnot, but I remember having just ringing in my ear and just not being able to move my arm very much. So I didn't even know if my limb was there. All I knew is I had so much pain, couldn't move. And, straight tunnel vision, couldn't see out of my left and right. I saw it was either my gunny or first sergeant was like waving. I saw my sergeant or my chaplain on the ground. He was trying to crawl. And so I grabbed him by, the little strength I had, I grabbed him by the back of his Kevlar and dragged him for like probably 25, 50 yards to get under the shelter that we had, because we didn't know what was coming in. We didn't even know it was a suicide bombing. We thought it was mortars coming in. We just didn't know. And I ended up dragging him, getting him to shelter. It was at this moment where, looking back, that was like a crazy ambush and it affected my life. And that happened February 17th, 2007. So it was over 13 years, almost 14 years now. And I'm still affected by it, just mentally, PTSD from it, but also my back has never been the same. So like, I don't have full rotation without pain with my right arm. And even today, and that one little injury and that one little spot is a constant reminder of where I was, what I went through, but also the blessing that God has me here to remember why I'm still here and still chasing that dream and not quitting, not giving up, and staying committed to the goals of where I want to go. And so there's a part of me, it's like, I still have weekly therapy on an ongoing basis for over 13 years that I still go, and I've seen every doctor you can imagine. No one can really pinpoint, figure out what that pain is. And doctors pretty much say, hey, it's chronic pain that you're going to have to learn to deal with. But I'm thankful for that injury and the fact where it's a reminder for me to stay committed and of where I was and where I'm going. And yes, it's painful every single day, and it hurts. And it hurts to sit down. It hurts to walk. And a lot of times there's sleepless nights because of it. And then it does haunt me with those memories, but it allows me to remember where I was. And that part I'm extremely thankful for, that I went through the situation. But what I really wanted to tie home is, I couldn't see it at that moment, but the more through counseling sessions and just a lot of reminiscing of thinking about that day and everything that took place, I look back at it from like almost like I'm looking at it from over the top, and I'm seeing everything that's taken place and all the action. And yes, it was very scary. Yes, there was a lot of emotions going on, and seeing. I mean, I remember when we got done with the cleanup with the entire thing. I was picking up body parts. I'm talking about torsos, legs, arms, carrying around heads. Like the guy that killed himself, I was carrying around his head and picking it up and helping the other Marines and sailors, just kind of cleaning up the area. And so it was a really long day. The blast happened probably between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. And we didn't get back to our camp until late that night. So I remember being like, maybe it was dark, so probably like 6, 7 p.m. at night. And I go back to our chapel tent, and where our tent was, where we had our offices and things, and we were kind of connected to medical personnel. They decided to dump all the bodies inside of there. So like in body bags in there, storing until like medevac or helicopters came in and took them where they needed to go. And these were locals that died. There was a lot of local people that died, not just our own people. And I just remember feeling so frustrated and anger at that moment. But I had a lot of anger that day, a lot of resentment, a lot of emotions going on at that moment. But when I look over from the top view and I kind of like look at it almost like a movie or a story or whatever you want to call it, and I see like everything that took place, it's phenomenal to see how everyone knew their place, what to do, and how they reacted during that time. So every Marine, we like I told you, we didn't know it was a suicide bombing coming in. We thought it was possibly like mortars coming in, but we all reacted accordingly. So we had Marines that went out and patrolled the city, kind of see if there was any other danger, checking to see if there was any more anyone else that's going to come attack. So all the Marines got into the their positions, do what they did. I remember just lines of Marines just kind of going through, patrolling the whole city from wide as you can get, and there were hundreds and hundreds of Marines just kind of doing their thing. Then medical personnel that's getting over the injured, that's really helping the people that got injured and shot and that's trying to take their last breath. And I remember standing over Jimmy, and I was trying to keep him awake while another Marine and a corpsman were trying to keep him alive. And unfortunately, he didn't make it. And I watched him take his last breath. But watching them, then watching the seniority people taking care of all the other Marines and sailors while they did their job, and medevac coming through and helicopters coming through. It was like a big machine. Everyone knew their place, what was going on at that moment, and knew how to react to it. And I say that because it reminds me of like ambushes, but then also in our businesses, like different threats and different ambushes, and knowing how to be prepared for it. So like you can never be too prepared for an ambush or something like this that takes place, but you can definitely train and be prepared and knowing how to react when something bad does happen. And that, for me, I look at it in my life and where I'm at in my business and where I'm at professionally today, is identifying those different threats. So like we knew that we had an enemy. We didn't know what it was and what's going to happen, but we knew we had an enemy, and we trained hard before, and we did all our workups, all of our training that we did before we actually got there. Like being prepared for when there was a fight or someone get injured or something. It just could be anything you can imagine. We prepared for it. You can never be 100% prepared for every situation, but we were prepared, saying if something happened, what is everyone's role and what do they need to do? And I call those different, I call that an ambush, but I also call that like, what are the different threats? So like you can identify different threats that you can be prepared for. So whether it's going to be a suicide bombing like this, an IED taking place, a Humvee getting taken down, it could be anything you can imagine. We train and we practice for the worst of the worst. And in our business, we need to identify different threats that can definitely harm us. And it could be something like a client quitting. It could be a tragic event in your family that keeps you from being able to work, not having the financial means to be like, oh man, if I lost a client, how is that going to affect my family? If I'm not able to make these sales calls, how does it get to affect my family or my business? Am I able to take a vacation? So I identify pretty much 5 main threats that people need to really hone in on and get really, really good at when it comes to their training, when it comes to building any sort of business. I don't care if you're a personal trainer or if you own a plumbing business. These are the 5 main things that I identify as that if you don't, it is a threat to you if you don't do a training and knowing how to actually prepare for it. So that way you can get out there and sell and promote your business. And what those 5 threats are, first one is your program. Or like a threat, if you don't know what your program is, that's going to be a threat to you. If you don't understand what you're giving away, what you're offering, what you're doing, that's going to be something that you really got to dial into and really get well at. The second one is going to be your offer. So you got your program, then you got your offer. So do you have an appealing offer that's going to reach to your market? Then you have your deliverables. How are you going to service your clients? How are you going to get it out to your clients? And then you have traffic, and then you got sales. So you need to really understand what your program is, what your offer is, how you're going to deliver your services, how you're going to direct traffic, and then how you're going to sell your program. And if you can really, if you can identify those as different threats and really look at it as, mastering those different areas of your life and in your business, then when a tragic situation or an ambush comes your way, you're going to be prepared for it. So you're going to know how, like I always try to tell people that confidence comes with clarity. So the more clarity that you have on all these different 5 things, these five elements, you're going to gain more confidence in what you're doing, what you're selling. And when you have confidence, you're going to be able to sell your product with more authority. And you're going to be able to build your business with more authority. But if you're one of those people that are wishy-washy and don't really know what's going on, and you don't really know how to explain your program or your message because you're all over the place where you're servicing anyone and everyone with everything that you can imagine just because you're trying to get the next client, well, now you're no different than anyone else, and you have no way to stand out within the crowd. So the way I like to tie it into my personal story and with business today is really just knowing that there are going to be ambushes that come your way. There's going to be something that comes your way that's going to throw you off guard and it's going to throw you off balance. And it goes back to what I just said. Are you going to have a client that wants to quit today? That are you relying on that one client that are like every single client is going to make a big difference in your business? And if you lost a client, is that going to impact your living or is it going to impact your business? And if they quit, that's an ambush. It's anything that takes you off balance. And are you going to be prepared for that? Another ambush could be like I told you, you get in a car accident, or do you have a way to travel now to take care of stuff because now your car's completely broken? Are you prepared for that? It's just anything that really takes you off balance and takes you off guard that I consider to be an ambush. And then my biggest message is, are you going to be prepared for those times when you are ambushed in those situations? And it's identifying those different threats for that. So that's how I tie in a lot of my story. It is something that I still struggle with today, but I will tell you, talking about the no quit and going forward and being committed, I have my own acronym that I talk about all the time, and it's the Daily Creed. And when I started reflecting on my story, my business, and what I do for a living, I came up with the creed as far as like what does creed stand for? Well, creed stands for belief, and you have like your daily belief, but I turn it into an acronym where it stands for commitment, resilience, excellence, execution, and discipline. And it's staying committed to the goals and the destination of where you want to go, and being resilient, even though during those times that are difficult, when you know, hey, I'm going to have times where I'm going to be ambushed. I know there's going to be difficult times. I'm not going to lower my standards at all because this is where I want to go and this is what I want to achieve. So I'm going to be resilient during those times and stick to those things that that I'm staying committed to, and not quit and not give up. I'm going to give excellence on everything. I'm not going to settle just for okay or just good enough. But every client that I talk to, every project that I do, give excellence, give your best on everything that you guys do, and then execute that mission. A lot of people fail at this area for the execution where they just don't show up every day. I can say I have one client that I was talking to, and we're looking at his stats and his numbers and his activity for every single day. And I noticed there was a trend on every Saturday and Sunday. He did absolutely no activity, and and he wonders why his business isn't growing. I can tell you most of my sales calls that I get for the next week or two comes from the weekends. And I'm not saying to work like a dog where all you're doing is work, but you got to show up doing something every single day. You got to, take action, execute your mission and stay committed to your goals. And you got to do something every day, even if it's only like 10 minutes that day, and just showing up and being present and being in front of your audience and reaching out to your perfect clients and servicing them. Like, don't turn down a client that needs your help and your services just because it's a weekend. Be like, hey, you know what? I'm sitting on the couch. It's a weekend. I needed time to relax and do it. And be like, hey, you know what? That's great. Take time off because they're going to go find someone else. They're going to go find someone else that's willing to help them and help solve their problems. But what are you going to do to stay resilient and be committed to the goals that you want to achieve? And are you going to be committed? And that commitment is part of showing up every single day, and it's doing something every single day. And it's the discipline for the D is like having that mental and that physical discipline. Are you emotionally have that emotional discipline to be able to respond tactfully? So I turn it back to like the military, where we always talk about, hey, be tactful for the situation, and don't react off the emotion, but react off of logic and being tactful when it comes to it. So it's just kind of like sticking through, following through with that daily creed, and being committed to your goals and what you want to achieve, but identifying those different threats so that way you are prepared when those ambushes actually come. And that way, when you are thrown off guard and you are ambushed, that doesn't take you by surprise. And it's really when I started really nailing down my personal story and relating it to my mission and what I'm trying to accomplish today in my life, it really puts a whole different perspective. And going back to like what I was saying today, like, yes, that day on February 7, 2007, it was a very tragic day. It definitely was something that changed my life and many others' lives forever. And especially having a little back injury that I almost didn't feel worthy enough to talk about this story for the longest time, until probably within the past year. And it was just because I just didn't feel worthy enough to tell my story, because I have friends that died and I have friends that don't have any limbs and they're still living today. And being able to tell my story the way it is, where I'm still able to be function every single day and still be able to eat like a normal person and exercise like a normal person. But it's having that injury as a reminder, saying where I was and staying committed to where I want to go, and not give up. So that's my story.
That's a long story. You put a bunch of stuff in that, and I appreciate your candor, and I think you shared a ton of stuff, and obviously our listeners can't see, but I took a copious amount of notes. You said one thing that I wanted to just dissect for a second, and I think it's important, and I've known you for a while now, and I had the honor of being on your show as well, but it's the word mission. And I think it's a word that anybody in business, anybody who's not in business, someone who's entrepreneurial, somebody who is a stay-at-home mom or dad, you can take that word mission and you can replace it with message. You can replace it with vision. I know a lot of people use different things in that, and it means different things to different people. But I think the common denominator is why you do something, whether it's in sales, whether it's as a parent, whether it's as a son, whether it's as a friend, whether it's as a spouse. And I think when you define that, and it has to be and can only be defined by you, I think that's where magic happens. And the reason I say that is the clients I work with, whether it's athletes, coaches, salespeople, I can't give them what their mission is. I can't say to you, okay, JR, based on what you just said, this is it. This is your word. This is your creed. This is what you have to do. Obviously, like you can give ideas, you can give suggestions, you can help them hone in on certain things. But until you find or define what it is, I think it's really important. So quickly, if you don't mind, just tell me the definition of the creed or mission and what it means to you, and if you could in a short version, because I want to get on some other stuff too, is maybe do you have a suggestion for people to help them define what their mission or message is?
Yeah. So first off, you have to. One thing I like to do, and I know they can't see it, but like I have a journal that I call this like my daily creed journal. So like my daily creed is the journal is the things that I am staying committed to. What is my belief and what do I want to achieve? And it goes back to like what the acronym that I created for. So like commitment, resilience, excellence, execution, and discipline. And I used to always preach about like understanding your why and knowing what that is. And recently, it was a couple months ago, I was in a virtual mastermind, and there was a former Navy SEAL. His name's Yost, and he was talking about like the why and how the why actually sucks, and it's not really important to do it, because he changed the why to almost like your identity. And to me, that really clicked. And now ever since he said that, I have a really hard time talking about like, hey, well, understand your why, understand where you're going and what you want to achieve. But when he said that, it really made a lot of sense. So because if you understand what your why is, or I'm sorry, you understand what your identity is, that's going to really define what your why is. So what do you want to be identified as a person, human being, professional, a husband, a wife, a spouse, a father, in your workplace? What do you want people to identify you as? And when you can really nail down that identity that you want to become, if you're not already there, whether it's going to be a leader, a person of authority, or just someone within your church or someone within your family, whatever that may be. Do you want to be identified as just as a father, a personal trainer, a coach? What is that identity that you want to do? And then figure out the plan of how it's going to get there and why you want to have that identity. So there's still that little bit of a why of why you want to have that identity, but it's really nailing down to it much further. And when he said that, it really transformed like my thinking about myself and where I'm going and what do I want to achieve and what I want people to perceive me as well. So when you can really nail down and hone and be like, hey, how do I want people to perceive me as a professional, a human being? And it could be multiple different things. It's not just one thing. So like in my professional life, I want to be perceived as this thing. In my friendship, like my personal life, I want to be perceived as a strong Christian and loving father and an amazing husband, or a triathlete or whatever it may be. A person that's fit or a person that loves to play games. What is that? And why is that important to you? Why is that important to me to have that identity? And what are you going to do to actually achieve that? And something my wife always tells me all the time, she was like, you're really good at, or she tells me like, I'm really good at chasing after things that are most important to me. And that goes back to the identity as well. So when I think about the areas of my life, and I do this just naturally without even thinking. So like the things that I start pursuing and I'm giving my all and I am not quitting and I'm committed to the most, those are, essentially are the things that are most important to me and that I'm passionate about and that I want to go after. So if my family was really important to me, I'm going to invest that time in my family. If my business is really important to me, I'm going to invest that time in that in my business or this project or whatever it may be. But if anyone's going to walk away and they want to understand like how to get that commitment level of where they want to go and finding that destination and knowing what their daily creed is, first identify what you want people to perceive you as. Like, what is that identity that you want to become? And then when you get that, then create the why you want that identity and then the plan of how you're going to get there. So when I learned that, it really changed it added on an extra layer, because I always thought about like, okay, what's that why? Well, I want to achieve this so I can do this and this with my family and and provide a good life and all these different things that everyone always says. But when I change it, add that layer above that why and put that identity and what I want people to perceive me as, it definitely took on a whole different meaning.
I appreciate you sharing that. And I think, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the author Brent Menswar. He just wrote a book, Black Sheep. I'll make an introduction to you, but he takes the whole concept of why versus what identity to a different level. And we can touch base offline. He was on my show a couple weeks ago, but it goes back to what I said before and leading into the question is the importance of you yourself identifying what that is. And now I want to be, very clear to our listeners. It's very important to have other people in your corner, on your bus, and what I call on your tribe, that give you ideas and suggestions and make you think about things. The word that I love to use is challenge you, but somebody else can't identify that for you. Somebody else can't give that to you. They can give you ideas and suggestions, but it goes back to, I think it's very similar to accountability and self-accountability. You can't be more accountable to somebody else than you are to yourself to be truly successful. Now take that into a sports perspective. You might win a game or two, you might get lucky here or there, but to be a truly successful team, you can't have players that are more accountable to other people than they are to themselves, because you first need to become accountable to yourself, then others. You first need to identify what your why, your mission, your message, your creed. So I really appreciate you touching on that. For our listeners that want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to connect with you? How can they follow you? And also, please make sure you talk about your podcast, because it is a fantastic show.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So, I'll just lead in with the podcast. So if they want to follow me and hear my message, I'm pretty active on my podcast, which is called the Daily Creed Podcast. So they can definitely look that up on iTunes, on Anchor, Spotify, pretty much anywhere that you want to listen to a podcast, it should be on there. My biggest platform is going to be on Facebook. So if you guys want to follow me, I am most active on Facebook, and you just look up J.R. Spear. There's not many people out there with my name. So you just look at JR Spears, shoot me a private message, and also my Facebook group, which is called Fit Pro Funnels. So Fit Pro being one word, and then funnels. It is, what I do for a living is I help, wellness professionals automate their online sales process, help them get more leads. But I also add a coaching aspect to it where I'm going to coach them on those 5 different elements with their programs, offers, and deliverables, as well as traffic and sales. So that way they can build a thriving business. And my thought is, if I can help a lot of people, a lot of fitness professionals or wellness professionals get out there and expand their reach so that they're helping more people, then ultimately we're working together to make this world a better place, and fighting against obesity and unhealthy people. So yeah, so Facebook is going to be the best thing, Fit Pro Funnels, or you can look up JR Spear and check out my Daily Creed podcast show. So that's going to be the best way.
I appreciate that. I definitely recommend people to connect with you on those channels. And the thing that I love about your business and the way you run your business is there are a lot of people and companies that are doing amazing things, whether it's with funnels, whether it's advertising, marketing. There's obviously a lot of people within the podcasting world as far as scheduling guests and things, and they do a good job. But you take it to another level when you help those people identify and work through those 5 things. So definitely recommend our listeners to check that out. And I only have 2 more questions for you. The first one is I want to say easier, but it's pretty black and white. Is we always talk about books and the value of books and the power of reading. And I wanted to ask you if there's anything you're currently reading or perhaps you've read recently that you'd like to recommend to our listeners.
Man, there's a lot of good books out there. I'm very big on self-development, and especially in my time of life, because since I am helping businesses grow their business and get traffic and sales, and so they can do that. I love Russell Brunson's book. He's the founder of ClickFunnels, and Traffic Secrets is the one that I'm finishing up right now and almost complete. But it's a phenomenal book. It definitely takes your mindset to a whole different place, especially when it comes to the way that you utilize social media and becoming a producer and rather than a consumer. So So being a producer rather than consumer, because we can go online all the time and consume so much information, which kind of eats us alive. But look at it as more business media than social media. And you're there for one purpose, and that's to produce content and help others. So if you're in there and taking in all the other information from all these other people, well, that's just going to, bring in a toxic mindset and a toxic feelings. And that's why a lot of people saying, hey, I just don't open my Facebook all the time because you get all the negativity. But you're not there to consume things. You're there to produce content to help others in your audience and find your perfect clients.
I love that. I've actually never heard that concept of producer versus a consumer. And I think in today's day and age, our listeners know it's something that I'm passionate about, which is controlling the controllables and spreading positivity by muting negativity. And then last question I have for you, JR, is if you have any parting words you'd like to leave with our listeners today.
Yeah, I'm very strong in my message when it comes to your daily creed. And figure out what your daily creed is. Get a daily creed journal. All it is a regular journal. And what you're going to do in there is every single morning, you're going to write down all the things that you want to be committed to. But one thing that I'm starting to do in there as well is I'm going to write down my wins too. So it's not just putting down the things that you are committed to, but write down your wins. And the reason why I did a live on my Facebook this morning, and I really want to hit on this because it was something that was eye-awakening for me. I wasn't tracking my wins as much as I thought I was. And in the month of September, I was stressed because recently, a couple months ago, I got fired from a day job, which was awesome because I was actually going to give my notice probably at the end of the year. We have a new baby coming, so I was just trying to work out the timing. And, they ended up letting me go sooner than later. So this is my only income to be able to provide for my family. And it's stressful. And it's like, man, if I'm not out there and I don't show up every single day and stick to the things I'm committed to, well, then I'm not able to provide for my family. So the month of September was actually, I was stressed out because I was like, man, we went on a family vacation with her family that was planned like a months ago before I even got fired. And we went, but I felt I had a hard time not working and not producing, doing different things every single day to get new clients and having new conversations and stuff like that. So it was like, man, that's like a whole more, like it was like 10 days that we were gone and doing stuff that I couldn't really work that much. And, and I was having conversation. I was doing it. I was helping people. I was just going through my regular stuff that I do every single day. Who can I help? More conversations I can have. And it was last week I was finishing out my numbers for the month of September. And I didn't realize that I actually had my best month in the month of September than I did the entire year. And the reason why I want to say track your wins. So it's like you need those wins to keep you motivated to the things that you're committing to. And I use my example almost like growing up in the martial arts. So I started doing martial arts since the day that I could walk, and came out of my mom kicking, and she had a martial arts school. Me and my 4 sisters grew up in that space my entire life, and I've been teaching since I was 13 years old. But essentially, there are 2 different belts in the martial arts. There's a white belt and there's a black belt. And an old saying is there's really only one belt, and it's the white belt, and it just turns black over time with age. So the more you use it, the more you do martial arts, it just gets more dirty, more aged, and then that's how it essentially turns black. But in today's day and age, we need to have those wins along the way. So martial arts schools, we started having all the different belts. So you have like a white belt, yellow belt, orange, green, blue, red, brown, black, depending on whatever school you go to, they have different colors. But those different colors is not necessarily for the school owner or for anyone else but yourself to kind of keep you on track and recognizing those wins along the way and throughout the process. So for any listener, if you want to walk away with anything, and this has been game changer for me, and I took it away from, I think we talked about on your show when you were interviewed on my show with Grant Cardone, talking about like feeding the beast and starve the doubt. And he talks about how he would get a legal pad and start writing down his goals and his things every single day. And that's what inspired me to come up with my Daily Creed Journal. It's like, you know what? I'm not doing that on a regular basis. And when I started doing that, it keeps me committed to it without lowering my standards, but it also makes me look at every single day of what I'm chasing and what I'm doing and my identity of who I want to become. But one thing I'm going to be adding into it is tracking those wins as well. So that way, every morning when I'm looking at and I'm writing down the things I'm committed to in my Daily Creed Journal, I'm also able to see and recognize all those wins. And it doesn't have to be a financial win. It could be a win with my wife. Like, oh man, I did this for my wife and it really made her happy. It really made her proud. I did this with my son. Like yesterday, I'm driving my 4-year-old to school and I'm teaching him about helping and serving others. And I said, hey, every single day I want you to wake up and do one thing that you can do to help someone else and to serve them. And we started going different things. They said, I don't care if it was a kid on a playground that dropped something, or you open the door for someone. And I'll tell you, when I had that conversation with him, it triggered for him. Because when I saw him, the first thing he did when he came home, he's like, hey, Daddy, I helped someone today. And it was like, he's 4 years old. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. What did you do? He said, well, my buddy Maddox, he dropped his water bottle when we were going out for snack time. And I picked up his water bottle and gave it to him. And he got really happy and smiled. And that was a huge win for me. And I was like, to me as a dad and a 4-year-old, that really choked me up. I was like, man, that's awesome. So the small things that we do can really impact him. But I am teaching him how to recognize his wins as well and how he can make an impact in the world. So for all your listeners, anyone that's going on this, get a Daily Creed Journal. Don't call it a Daily Creed if you don't want to, but I do it because it's something that's really important to me. I even have my logo on my phone. So when I open up my phone every single day, it's telling me about it has my logo of the Daily Creed on there. But write down the things that you're committed to, but also track your wins so it keeps you motivated throughout the process.
I love it. I love that. It's something that I talk about all the time, which is small wins lead to huge victories. So for our listeners, definitely grab yourself a journal. Those listeners that listen to the show consistently know that I believe in journaling as well. And I challenge everybody today to track one win, to track your successes, to track a win or two, and you compound that over a day or 2 or 3 or 4. And all of a sudden you have those significant changes in a positive direction. So JR, my man, I truly appreciate you being here. It was an honor to have you. I'm glad I could return the favor. And I definitely know that we'll connect again soon. And I hope that our listeners follow your show and also they grab a journal and they track their wins today. Thank you for listening to episode number 304. I love how JR said that confidence comes with clarity. One thing you mentioned was being very clear on what you want people to identify you as, something that really stuck with me. To wrap up today's episode, I would like to echo something that JR said that really had an impact on me. With his journaling, JR mentioned how he has begun tracking his wins, which is something I challenge each and every one of you to think about, but also start doing. As my listeners know, I believe in learning from our failures and becoming a better version of ourselves, but it's also important to track your wins along the way, no matter how large or how small. And remember, we rise by lifting others up.
And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.